Hi there, nice to see you. This is piece video number 2, and this is Violet's story called Peace in the Midst. We hope you enjoy it.
Tears streamed down Violet's face as she stood near the window and watched her friends playing football without her. They had even put in Sebastian as goalie. Sebastian! Just because he was good at FIFA didn't mean that he was a good goalie. Inside, her heart was breaking, and in her head, a voice shouted loudly, "Why wouldn't they replace you? You're nothing but a defective girl." This year of 2020 had been really hard. In March, all the schools closed because of the terrible pandemic, and vulnerable people were asked to shelter in their homes. Violet's mom was a nurse, and so she had to still go out and work. Violet hadn't seen her face to face in quite a while. She was staying near her hospital to protect Violet and her grandfather. She really missed her mom. Now, 12 weeks later, things were beginning to open up, but the shelter-in-place restriction was still in effect. Violet couldn't go out because her grandfather, whom she loved with all her heart, was over 80 and vulnerable to the disease. She really desperately wanted to be out playing with Glad and the gang, but she stayed put because it was the right thing. Violet had moved to town last year because her mom had gotten a job at the hospital. Violet had lost her dad in a car accident a few years before, so it was just Mom, Violet, and her grandfather. Violet had been in the car with her dad and lost her right arm as a result of the accident. It took her a long time to be able to use her left hand in place of her right, but by the time she had come to town, she was pretty good at it. She met Glad and the gang at school. They invited her to come play football with them, but that loud voice in her head told her, "Don't even try. You're just a cripple. They don't really want you. They just feel sorry for you." She didn't like for people to feel sorry for her, and so she told the gang no for a long time. They continued to try to get her to join in, and she continued to refuse. Until her grandfather somehow got wind of the invitation and suddenly began to encourage her to learn the game. He showed her YouTube videos of one-armed goalies at the Paralympics and told her she could do it. Violet had lived with incredible anxiety since the accident. For a while, she was afraid to get in a car or even leave the house. It took a really long time for her to feel like she could get out. The professional counselors told her mom and grandfather that they should just let her go at her own pace and she would tell them when she was ready. She had been out of school for months and been doing online schooling. While doing an assignment, she came across a video on YouTube. The teachers were funny, and she continued to watch it because they made her laugh. And then she began to listen to what they were saying. They were talking about the peace of God. Violet and her family didn't go to church. If God really existed, why would her dad have died in an accident? But these teachers talked like God was a real person, like Jesus was their friend, like they believed everything they said was true. She found herself going back to their channel again and again. She listened to everything they had done and prayed with them and asked Jesus to come into her life and change her. She told her grandfather and he smiled. "What a wonderful thing," he said, and left it at that. She continued to listen to the teachers on YouTube, and slowly, the loud voice telling her she shouldn't go outside because she'd get hurt was replaced by a soft voice that said Jesus loved her. She drew strength from that, and as a result, began to leave the house. So when her grandfather encouraged her to try to be a goalie, she prayed that God would give her strength to learn. And he did. She practiced and practiced, and the next time Glad asked her to join the team, she said yes. They told her she was the best goalie they had ever seen, and the loud voice was silenced for just a little while. She even began to attend church with them, with her mom's blessing, and began to learn more about walking in relationship with God. And then the pandemic hit. She couldn't go out and see her friends, and the loud voice that told her she was rubbish began to speak louder and louder until that was all she could hear. Now she watched as the Glad gang played and replaced her with Sebastian. Now, she liked Sebastian, she really did, but she didn't like to think that she could be so easily replaced. So she stood there, listened to the loud voice, and cried. She sighed a bit as she turned away from the window. She was so sad she didn't even see her friends waving their hands to her to try to get her to come out and play with them, but her grandfather saw it. He sighed to himself. Restrictions would lift soon, he knew, but he was very concerned about Violet, and so he began to pray. He had seen the difference in Violet when she asked Jesus into her heart, and he prayed that God would speak to her in the midst of the pandemic. He hadn't prayed in years and wasn't even sure if God listened to him anymore, but still, he prayed. Violet went to the computer and began to surf around YouTube. She found this funny little video that talked about peace again. The teacher said that God's peace was like a song. God was the melody and she was the harmony. They said that the melody needed to be stronger than the harmony. God's voice needed to be stronger and hers needed to be softer. They even sang and demonstrated, which made her giggle just a little bit. The loud voice inside her was telling her that she was rubbish, she'd never be good enough or strong enough. She frowned. That, she knew, wasn't God's voice. And so she listened harder. She tried to ignore the loud voice, but it was really difficult. At night, she prayed for the first time in 12 weeks. She said, God, I want you to be the melody in my life. Please let me hear your voice so much stronger than I hear my own. And with that, she went to sleep. The next morning when she got up, she felt a little better. The loud voice was still there, but maybe it was a little quieter than before. She heard another voice there saying how much she was loved by God. That, she knew, was the voice she needed to listen to, the melody that needed to play louder. She went to the kitchen, and there in the middle stood her mom. She ran to her mom for the first time, for the first mom hug she had had in 12 weeks. Mom said the restrictions were lifting even more and soon she'd be able to leave the house. They'd have to wear masks in the shops, but outside she'd be fine to play with her friends. She just had to wait a little longer. And when she went to her email, there was a note from GLAAD saying how much they had missed her while they were playing football, but that she understood that Violet wasn't able to come out just now. She ended by saying they looked so forward to seeing her face to face. Violet smiled to herself. That was a very nice thing to read, and it was good to know that she would be able to leave the house soon. But even more than that, Violet knew that God loved her. That was her peace in the midst of the pandemic.
Hi guys! Hey, we hope you enjoyed Violet's story. Next week we are doing patience. Woo! We know you guys are all headed back to school in a few days after that. So we will see you then. As always, thank you so much for watching. See you later, guys.
Bye.